Hi, I'm recording this video in the hope that it will be of help to you if you're a mum and you're having a struggle within your family with nutrition. Perhaps you've got a child, whether young or older, who has a weight problem in perhaps both directions, either overeating or undereating, and you would love some support in this journey because it's hard. There was an article in the paper yesterday about the absolute increase in New Zealand of people who need support for eating disorders and the fact that there's a 3-month wait list. And you know, those numbers to me represent a lot of people in pain and a lot of families in pain who are trying to help this family member as they go through this very difficult time. And I guess I just sort of felt really compelled to record a bit of a message about my experience and my mum. Now, this is obviously very personal, and I expect it's only probably going to appeal to people who are maybe going through this challenge themselves. But, you know, there's nothing like hearing what somebody else went through, and I guess just an example of one approach you could take. As with everything in weight loss and in eating and in food and in people and in relationships, there is no right or wrong way to do it. And I know that every mother tries her best, especially the people who are looking for support. And there is no guidebook, right? We don't get a guidebook when we become a mum of how to raise this child and how to help them through this challenge. And I imagine it would be particularly difficult if you yourself don't have an issue with food or eating, and yet your child does, because it's probably very difficult to relate to that. I would imagine in the same way, if you are somebody who has had a weight struggle, it's a different challenge again, isn't it? Because of course we don't want our children to go through the same things we did. So no matter what side of the spectrum you are on with your own experience, it's still going to be difficult. So I just wanted to take the time to share with you this story about when I gained weight and how my mum dealt with it. And I'm not putting this out there saying this was right or wrong. This was just what happened to me and how it affected me. And I'd love to share that as an example that will hopefully help you. What I would like to start off with saying is that this is important. And I know that my work as a nutritionist has really impacted on how I am as a mother. And to be honest, possibly in a negative way. I don't know yet because my kids are still young. I have a son who's 14. I have a daughter who's 9. Gosh, she's gorgeous. They both are. She's just particularly adorable, I have to say. And I don't know if what I'm doing is right. They're still young. I'm doing what I feel is right, what feels right to me. But I know it's important because in the last 10 years, obviously I've dealt with a lot of people who have food issues and body issues stemming back to when they were children. And I hate to say this, but often mums get blamed. And it's things like, you know, my parents forced me to eat all the food on my plate, and they forced me to eat food I hated, that type of thing. Now, I'm sure those parents had the best intention. I don't judge them, but what I do know is that for some people, they take on that experience, and unfortunately, it seems to impact them throughout the rest of their life. And yeah, it is a bit of a worry, and I know that has impacted how I am with my children. Like I said, I don't know if I do it right or wrong, but I do know that a lot of people, their food issues can stem from childhood. So it is important. But going back to my own experience, and I'd just like to say, you know, from the beginning with my mum, I was raised in the family that we were raised in, you know, there really were no issues with food. My mum was an amazing baker, an amazing cook. We had lovely, homemade, healthy food. Oh, and by the way, it's my mum's birthday today, and that's what got me thinking about my mum and this, you know, that wanting to share this, because my mum is amazing. She truly is. She raised 4 of us. She had 4 kids under 5. We were raised in the 70s, the good old 70s and early 80s. She made our clothes. She made our food. She had a beautiful vegetable garden. She was an amazing mother, an amazing housewife, and just, of course, I'm going to say she did a great job, but you know, she really did. And growing up, I don't remember ever thinking about diets. I mean, obviously we didn't have social media then, back in the good old 70s, but that was never discussed in our house. My mum, we never talked about that. None of us children were overweight growing up. My mum never dieted. She was not thin and she was not overweight. She was just, for want of a better word, normal. And we ate 3 meals a day, snacks, a lot of it was homemade, just very simple. You know, food was never an issue and food was really delicious. So I would love to say that actually we were all raised with a very healthy relationship with food. And what was interesting was that I was the only one out of my siblings who at a youngish age actually became overweight. And for me, that happened not really that young. I became overweight when I went off to university. So I was the first one out of my siblings. I'm one of 3 girls. I've got a brother and 2 sisters. I'm the middle girl and I was the big one. So that was interesting. Now, growing up and through my teens, I was always confident. And when I went away to university, I was still very confident, still the same happy person, but unfortunately, I experienced a real grief just before I started university where my best friend passed away, which was very sad and quite hard to deal with because that happened and then I left home to go move to Auckland to go to university, living in the hostels. There was a lot of drinking and a lot of carb eating, a lot of late night McDonald's and Georgie pie. And for me, I guess at that point became quite an emotional eater as I was sort of dealing with the grief. So I gained a lot of weight quickly, probably in that first year, and I didn't weigh myself, but I reckon I would have gained at least 15 kilos, maybe 10 to 15 kilos. And I remember going home, especially at the end of that year. I didn't see my parents that frequently in the holidays, but I remember going home at the end of the year, and I think I'd caught the train home to Tokoroa. And I got off the train and I remember my mum looking at me and, you know, she must have been quite surprised, probably a little bit horrified. I'd gained a lot of weight. And do you know what she said to me? Nothing. My mother never made one comment about my weight. You know, from that point on until I left, I ended up going overseas about 3 years after that. So I had about a 3 to 4 year period where I was really overweight and I wasn't happy about it. And do you know, my mother never said one thing in judgment of me. Not a word. She showed nothing but unconditional love and just always used to say, I love you as you are. I mean, she didn't exactly say those words, but I never had any indication, I suppose, that she even noticed. You know, there was never a comment like, oh, Cheryl, are you sure you need dessert? Are you sure you should be eating that? Nothing. And I just find that to be actually amazing because to not say something is probably harder than to say something, right? And, you know, she didn't. And I just look back at that and I think, wow, that's really amazing. And my only hope is that I could be that brave, I guess, as a mum and strong to actually not say anything. God, I'm not sure if I could. I'm going to try my best. Yeah, that's a hard one. So my mum is obviously amazing. And I remember during that period, I had a relationship and I was really in love and it was my first really serious boyfriend. And, you know, to be fair, you have your ups and downs and I was feeling very self-conscious. I was really overweight. We'd go out to eat dinner and he stayed skinny and I got fatter. And, you know, we all have our times when we're upset and have a little cry to mum because, you know, you weren't maybe getting what you needed from the relationship or weren't feeling very loved. And my mum would just listen to me and just be full of encouragement and just loving words. And it's funny, I found this letter, which I just want to share. I found this. I've kept this all these years. And look at my mum's lovely writing. Look, she even writes like in the olden days. And this is what it says. Dear Cheryl, I hope this will help cheer you up. She'd sent me a little gift because I was upset. I'd obviously been crying about what was happening and the fact that I was fat. She says, we love you just as you are. You are very pretty and your good health is more important than anything else. You have a radiant personality and we wouldn't want you to be any different in any way other than you are. Lots of love from us both, Mum. Isn't that sweet? You know, and of course that really meant a lot. Now, I didn't need my mum to tell me I was fat. Of course, I bloody knew I was fat and I was very upset about it. I didn't show it on the outside because I was a confident person, but of course I wasn't happy on the inside. And I look back now and I think, wow, I was just so lucky to have that support from my mum and that unconditional love, because it certainly, I suppose, helped me to keep a bit of confidence. I was still out there. I mean, I'm a singer. I remember doing a show even when I was overweight and singing on stage and feeling embarrassed, but still wanting to do it because I loved it. And I'm sure that a big part of that was because of the support of my mum, who I know just loved me the way I was. So that was what happened. And I ended up going overseas to Japan and living alone and having a job and forming friendships and starting exercising. And actually on my own, just starting to form a love of exercise, and I started losing weight. I remember I came home after about 6 months and everyone noticed that I had lost weight, and I was really encouraged. And I went back to Japan and I just went hard and just focusing on, I didn't know anything about nutrition, but I was exercising, feeling good, had a really positive group of friends, and I lost a lot of weight. Probably most of my 30 kilos I lost in 1 year. Oh God, I wish I was 22 again. It was so easy back then, you know. But anyway, I remember Mum and Dad came to Japan for a holiday after that year. And when my mum saw me at the airport, oh, she was so excited. In fact, I think she probably got a bit worried that maybe I was taking it too far and I was getting too skinny, you know how mums are. But I just remember her saying to me, oh, Cheryl, I'm so happy for you. You know, we always used to think that you were very pretty and if you could just lose a bit of weight, you'd look lovely. But of course, I could never say that to you because you were too sensitive. And, you know, my mum at that point when I'd lost the weight, you know, said that to me, which was really lovely. And of course, as I said, she had never mentioned anything like that before. So I know how happy she was for me, as of course every mother would be. And it was lovely, you know, for me. Of course, I was just so happy when I was at that new weight. And I mean, I've never gained the weight back since. This is new me. It's been, what, 23, 24 years now. So I've kept the weight off. And, you know, my mum has been my biggest supporter. And, you know, that was amazing to be able to share that at that time. And of course, it's amazing now to still have never been overweight apart from being pregnant. But that's a different story. So yeah, I just wanted to share that in terms of how my mum was and how that made me feel. I'm not saying it's right. It's just my experience and sharing the fact that it really, I guess, worked for me. And that is one way to approach this. If you're struggling, if you don't know what to say to your daughter or your son, maybe you don't need to say it. They probably already know. And maybe it is just that wonderful unconditional love that is what they need. So I hope that's given you something to think about. And what I also would love to say is that, you know, if you're struggling with this topic and you're not getting support and you'd like to talk it through with someone, please reach out to me. I would love to have a chat. You can book a phone call with me through my website. And I'm only too happy to maybe help you come up with some ideas. I mean, with a 3-week waiting list for professional help, that's too long. And it's so hard when you don't know what to do. Now, I am not an expert and I'm not qualified to do consults involving weight with children especially. I have worked with teenagers before, teenagers who want to lose weight and who are a bit older, especially over the age of 18. Even then, I'm always a bit wary to talk about weight. I'd rather just, make it about food and try and keep things really general, because I'm certainly not qualified to deal with children, but it doesn't mean I can't talk to children. And I have talked to children in the past, just a simple talk about food. But look, for you mums, if you're having a struggle and you want to talk to someone about nutrition options, just give me a call. I'd love to help. So that's my little story of me and my mum, and me as a mum, and all I can do is hopefully do my best to follow the wonderful example that my mum set. That's my goal, and I'm getting through it day by day, experience by experience, just like all of you. But don't give up. There's help, there's options, and I know you want the best for your child, and I'm sure they will appreciate it. They might not say that now, but they will in time.